Hi, it's me, Brian, Theoretical Gamer. This is going to be an unusual one because it's not really about... It's about a novel and how, in my mind, it connects to gaming. It's like, you know how it is. You read something and you connect it and you think, oh, okay, if he was a player character around a game, wouldn't it be cool if there were player characters around a game doing this? I mean, the entire webcomic Darths and Droids is based on the idea that what if Star Wars was a game played by a bunch of people. But what I read recently was Dracula by Bram Stoker. I've read it before, and when I say read it, I actually listen to it as an audiobook in my car. I do that a lot now. I have a part-time pizza delivery job. I listen to audiobooks while I drive. It's fun. But Dracula, the first two-thirds of it is very slow build, very Victorian, very, it's just exposition and letting you know what the deal is. But the last third of it, it almost seems like a party of adventurers on a monster hunt. And it's kind of awesome. Because, the thing is, like most modern horrors is, you don't get that shift. You're the victim all the way through, and maybe you find some way to destroy the monster at the end, but you don't get that sudden, you know what? We're going to take the fight to the enemy. We're going to, chase the monster down and destroy it. And that was awesome. Now, first of all, that's already kind of a spoiler, but I'm going to be giving away plot points. I mean, Dracula, I think there's kind of probably a statute of limitations on spoilers. Dracula came out, I think, in 1897. I might be a couple of years off. It was late 19th century. But I'm going to warn you that there will be a lot of spoilers in this. So, if you haven't read Dracula, pause the video, go read Dracula, and then come back. Have you read Dracula? Good. Now, we'll assume that everything up to a certain point, because to me, I'm trying to figure out what these players are like, what these players that are playing Dracula are, who they are and what they're like. Okay, the very beginning of it is Jonathan Harker going out to Castle Dracula in Transylvania to arrange the sale of a place because Dracula is planning to move to London. Okay. That, to me, could have been an actual adventure. It was a one-on-one between the game master and the guy who plays Jonathan Harker. And, it's like, so I figured they're buddies, and the game master, I'm imagining a Call of Cthulhu-like rule set. Like, he whipped out his old Call of Cthulhu rules, and instead of using the Cthulhu mythos, made it a standard vampire. Which can be done. And it was really just, probably an impromptu one-on-one, like, hey, because if you got a good player and a good game master, a one-on-one session could really work, especially if you focus on the isolation and the helplessness. Like, you're one dude, and you're trapped, and you're alone, and you're 1,000 miles from home, and so even if you escape, what are you going to do? And Harker did pretty well, It was like at the end of that first session, it was kind of unclear as to whether he escaped, because it's written in the style of journal entries and letters and stuff. So, it's like, this is my last, I'm going to attempt to escape. And then, you go half the book before you find out whether he escaped or not. And, of course, he did. So, everything after Harker's escape, up to a point, I think Lucy Westenra's death is boring-ass backstory. See, what happened was this. The DM... Now, first of all, I will say this. The DM is a good DM. He's very, very good at creating a horror atmosphere. Has issues with women. I mean, of course, in in stereotype gamer nerd fashion, he has issues with the girls, which I think he tries to keep under control, but as is often in these cases, it leaks out through his game mastery. He you have the Count, who has a penchant for chasing down beautiful young women and turning them into his evil vampire slaves. That could be a fetish, or it just could be an issue with women. It could be deeper than that. First off, one cool thing about Dracula is Dracula was a monster. Later versions tried to give him this romance, he is obsessed with Mina Harker because she is a reincarnation of his lost love. Nope, she's just the latest. Excuse me. She's just the latest beautiful young woman that he wants to track down and turn into his evil slave. The vampires are monsters. They are evil. Killing them is an act of mercy, as it frees the soul of the victim. But anyways, at some point, the game master says, he gets to his buddy who plays Jonathan Harker. He says, "Hey, look, let's, I'm gonna put another game together. He's another Victorian horror game." He's like, "Okay, can I play Jonathan Harker? We'll say that his escape was complete." "Okay, good." Because it ended, the session ended right before that, and they never got back to it. "Okay, we'll say that he escaped and now he's made his way back to England." So what they do is they get the group together. Okay, here is the party. Jonathan Harker. There's Mina Murray, who becomes Mina Harker, right? A girl player at the table, which I think the GM has an issue with. We'll get to that in a bit. Van Helsing, who basically did that rules thing in Call of Cthulhu where you can make your character much older and get a whole bunch of extra skill points. So he does, and he put a lot into occult, which is very useful for the game master if you want to feed plot. If you want to say, "Oh, this is what," roll it. Okay, you rolled well. This is the vampire's, what the vampire can do. This is what he can't do. This is his weaknesses. This is how you fight him. So Van Helsing was a fantastically useful character for that regard. If you're running a game, if you want to have that expert there that you can feed stuff through. Okay, then you got Dr. John Seward, who is I think that I remember reading rules that if you have points in psychotherapy or something, that you can use it to restore sanity to people. So I think that the guy playing John Seward, he was a psychiatrist, he was a doctor, he worked at the lunatic asylum, because it was the 19th century and they still use terms like lunatic asylum. But I don't think he ever actually got to use those rules, but he was there. I think he built that with the character with that in mind. Arthur Holmwood, also known as Lord Godalming. He had just inherited his father's title, and I think that he was kind of trying to go for the high status Lord character, and the status didn't come into play that much. I mean, there was one case where he was able to grease the wheels bureaucratically because the guy knew who he was. But, and of course, I have a suspicion that this group that is playing them is an American group, right? Because if you run a game in Victorian England for an American group, one dude is always going to be like, "Wait a minute, it's the 19th century, right? Can I play a cowboy?" Quincy Morris. He is the Texas guy. He is the range riding cowboy. So they all get together, and everything between Jonathan Harker's escape and Lucy's death is long, boring backstory. It's either character background or such and such. And the game master is clever. He wants to have connections between the characters and backgrounds. It's okay, you were all in love with Lucy, and she was going to marry Dr. Seward. Dr. Van Helsing is Dr. Seward's old. She Lucy was the thing that bound them all together. He said, okay, that way you know, that way you didn't have these 6 characters meet in a bar and decide to hunt a vampire. You know, and like, uh, so it's like, they're all connected in some way. And of course, in the game master decides to start the game by stuffing Lucy Westenra in the refrigerator, which is a comic book term for basically killing off the female character in order to drive the male heroes into action. Right? The fact that one of the male heroes is female, Mina Harker, is an unexpected twist. Okay, now let's talk about Mina's player. She's the chick. She's the only chick at the table. She is playing Jonathan Harker's wife. But if you read the novel of Dracula, oh my God, they are constantly gushing out to Mina. Like, oh, Mina, you're so beautiful. Oh, you're so strong-willed and cool and badass, and you're almost like a man that way. It's and so I think they're a bunch of nerdy gamers, and she's the girl at the table, and they all got a crush on her. And she is playing Jonathan Harker's wife, which means that either he might be her gay friend or her more mature friend that she's pretending. She says, look, if our characters are married, maybe they won't hit on my character as much. Didn't really work. Or maybe the Jonathan Harker player is not the gay friend, but he's the guy that the Mina player actually likes. You know, I don't think that he's actually the boyfriend or husband, because they're still gushing on her too much. I mean, if the boyfriend or the husband was there, they might lay off. But if she's single, then it is. It's if you read the novel, it's compliment. Mina, you're so great. Mina, it's like, gee, okay, we're aware. We like Mina. All right, stop telling us how much we're supposed to like her. Anyways, Lucy gets stuffed in the fridge, and the story starts off with the Blue Fur Lady. Basically, the story about the beautiful woman who is appearing at night and luring away small children, and the small children come back looking all anemic with marks on their necks. And they figure out, and of course, Van Helsing makes the occult roll and realizes that he has to go through the whole song and dance of trying to convince them of what's going on while overcoming their Victorian prejudices of like, no, such a thing is not real. And of course, they find out that, yes, Lucy has been turned into a vampire, and they go and they stake her, and that was probably like one session. Right? Okay. Pretty cool. At this point, the reason I think of this as an adventure is because just the way they act once they realize what they're dealing with. They're like, okay, he needs his home soil. Okay, let's go like put holy wafers in all of his coffins and his boxes. Okay, and they even do the Call of Cthulhu research thing where they find out everywhere that he lives and track down everything that he's got. You're like, okay, sanctify his coffins, boom, boom, boom. He's got nowhere to go, right? The Game Master is like, oh man, okay, well he takes his last coffin and he's going to run back to Transylvania. Okay, at this point, we've won. No, these are gamers. We chase his ass down. This is like the almost the standard. Okay, let's have the villain go away and he can show up in a later adventure, and the players aren't having that. They're gonna chase his ass down, right? And it almost went that way, but except that the Game Master, with his issues with women, decides, okay, I'm gonna, punish Mina's player for being female and here. So he's like, okay, he forces himself on you and makes you drink his blood. Now you have a psychic link through which he can control you and eventually turn you into his evil slave. Right. Okay. Well, Mina, her player, bless her, she's a trooper. She sticks in there. She shows up, and she's And of course, I'm thinking the other players are like, no, 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 you can't just have her be the slave. She has to be able to play. So he comes up with this interesting, weird thing that she finds herself free to talk and participate during the times of sunrise and sunset. At this point, she is probably she's the clever one at the table. She comes up with, wait a minute, he has a kind of psychic link with me because of the blood, right? And I'm pretty free to act at these particular times, right? Okay. Van Helsing has the hypnosis skill. Why doesn't you have him hypnotize me and then use the psychic link so we can find out? She figures out this rules cheat. That is like such a gamer thing to do. She figures out this rules cheat that, okay, well, to find out where the Count is and what he's doing. To take that psychic link and turn it back on him. And the Game Master is like, yeah, that is kind of clever. Okay, I'll allow that. But he doesn't really give them much, because every time they do it, it's like you're in darkness and you hear the lapping of water, which isn't a little, but he's like, okay, we know he's at sea, right? You never hear his conversations. You never hear the you never hear the Count saying like, well, we are now on the river going toward such and such. No, it's always darkness and the lapping of water, which is a little. And it really does have the feel of, it's like I said, the first major part is just the slow build, it's very into, all in all, despite his issues, the Game Master seems to be a very good Game Master. He's very good at keeping the excitement up, except for his penchant for long backstory and his gender issues. But of course, what happens is and the Game Master is very good at making sure that they track him down and find him just in the nick of time, right before he's able to strike, But and then, of course, they're very, very thorough, like player characters tend to be. A lot of characters in horror novels are stupid. They'll forget something that leaves the door open for a sequel, or they'll walk blindly into danger. No, he goes, okay, we're at Castle Dracula. Okay, the Van Helsing player's like, okay, I find those 3 vampire chicks that Jonathan Harker met in the early prequel that he told me about, and I'm going to boom, 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 stake all 3 of them. Okay. They have the thoroughness and that drive of player characters. I love the fact that once they realize what's happening, they don't just keep being victims. Which, to me, it's like, it's an awesome book. Like I said, if you haven't read it, even though I told you to go read it, go do it. It's and they seem like a party. Anyways, that's my rambling Dracula video. Peace out.